Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Today's special guest starred as Jerry, the van-driving Texan who was dating Sally Hardesty and didn't like people goofing on him in the groundbreaking horror classic, The Texas Chain Saw Massacre, which just so happens to be celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Known as Chainsaw Jerry to his fans, he recently made his return to horror with roles in two 2023 films, Cannibal Comedian and Storage Locker, and he also is both starring in and executive producing the upcoming horror comedy Weedhacker Massacre. Please welcome to the podcast, Alan Danziger.
Hey, how we doing? How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm having the time of my life.
I can only imagine. So, we read that you were born in the Bronx and eventually moved to Austin to pursue a master's degree in social psychology and social work. So how'd you get involved in acting, or was it always a hobby of yours?
No, it was never a hobby of mine. It was actually doing social work. I was doing volunteer work in East Austin, and there was a young couple named David and Amy, and they were about to get married, and Tobe was shooting the movie Eggshells, which was ostensibly about this couple. And it was like a hippy-dippy, psychedelic Austin in the late 60s. So if you want to know what Austin looked like in the 60s, Eggshells is the movie to see. So anyway, because they were doing volunteer work, I met Tobe through Sally Richardson, who was living downstairs from me when I was living in a duplex. And so she introduced me to Tobe. And then when Tobe found out that they were doing volunteer work, he said, "Can we shoot a scene with you at your house?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem." At the time I was married. My son was like 8 months old. And so they came, they shot the scene. They also set fire to my apartment. So they shot the scene and then they kept adding scenes for me to be in. And I guess they thought I was funny, whatever.
And you had never acted before?
No. And
wow.
When the movie came out, I think maybe 30 or 40 people saw that movie, so, and then it got tied up also in some legal shenanigans. So the movie, nobody saw the movie. And about 4 years later, lo and behold, I get a call from, I'm not sure, it might have been Tobe, it might have been Kim. And they said, "Alan, we wrote this movie and we'd like you to play this part, Jerry." And so they gave me the script. I went home, read it. I was fascinated. And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And as they say, the rest is, go figure, it's history.
Yeah.
And before that, reading that, were you familiar with horror films, or were they on your radar? Growing up, was there any monster movies or horror films that had
the only movies for me growing up was Abbott and Costello. Meet Frankenstein or meet the Wolfman. Those what I related to. As I got older, I think Psycho kind of freaked me out.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and The Omen. You know what I mean? Those. But I wasn't into horror movies. And just as an aside, when Gunner, who played Leatherface, approached me about doing a reunion in 2004 at Cinema Wasteland, I said, "Are you kidding? I'm going to end up meeting serial killers, wannabes." But they turned out to be, these were the nicest people you could ever meet. They just loved this genre, and they saw me as fresh meat, for the horror circuit. So I mean, it still is amazing to me and gratifying that after all these years, here's a geezer now, and that they still want to talk to me or get a kick out of it. And I've never met so many wonderful people.
Horror fans are very loyal, very passionate. We're basically just horror fans. But, moving onto the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, because we heard you mention in an interview that you didn't really have an audition. So Tobe Hooper just approached you with the role and asked you to play it. And what did you think when you first read the script about a chainsaw-wielding maniac?
I was freaked out, but I said, okay, that's showbiz, so I gave it my best shot. It was a grueling shoot. It was summer or July. It was Africa hot, and then figure being in that van with no air conditioning, all the lights, extra people, Tobe with a cigar. It wasn't your best time to do it, and it kind of shows, it reflects, in the movie. We're all sweating, and then we pick up that Neil. I mean, what the hell was I thinking?
Oh, that summer heat must have been brutal.
It was brutal, but actually my part was the least difficult. Like I say, I have wonderful memories. The heaviness, or the heavy part, was in that house, with the rotting bones and the rotting meat, and then Gunnar in that suit for a month and a half. They didn't have Febreze back then. You know what I mean? It was brutal. You know what I mean? And they didn't have a mass replacement clothes. So it got rank, and people were throwing up constantly.
Do you know if the other actors had to audition?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they were, in film or in drama. My favorite review of this movie is by a guy that his name is James Janice, and he does a review of Chainsaw. And he referred to me as this 30-year-old disco stew-looking dude.
Yeah, it's so funny. Who can we thank for that amazing flashy shirt you wear? Was that yours, or did that come from the costume?
Yeah, it's all my stuff, the pants, the shirt. And that's the other thing. That shirt was borrowed by Ron Bozeman, who was the production guy, and actually went on to get an Academy Award for Silence of the Lambs.
Wow.
And we're doing a long shot at the beginning of the movie. Can I borrow your shirt? It's my favorite shirt. I never got the shirt back. I don't know what was going on in my brain, and I ran into him. I hadn't seen him in 50 years, and I hated him. But after I saw him, he's an old guy like me, and he doesn't remember, So a fan, though, came up with a similar pattern and a similar material, and I'm going to start, I think, wearing that at some of the
I would wear it.
Yeah, it's such a great shirt. We also heard you mention before that the script would change kind of on a daily basis. Do you remember any specific plot points or sequences that changed from when you read the script to when you filmed?
Well, I mean, things that they kept changing it and a lot of times I said, I can't say these lines. They just don't fit. So they said, well, then make it up, just do your thing. And a lot of the funny things, like quit goofing on me, those are my lines, or I don't know if there's a line when I'm walking at the gas station, I say, you think this place has room service? Those are all my lines, and people like it, so I got nothing but good things to say, about the movie. And after, we stay in touch, with the cast members. Unfortunately, we're a vanishing breed. And so a lot of us are gone. I say every day above ground is a good day.
Yeah, but luckily there's still a good amount of you around that we can speak to about these things, which is we're so fortunate to have that opportunity. You had mentioned in the opening scenes the heat and filming in the van. I just have to ask, how did they fit all five of you, a camera crew, and Franklin's wheelchair all in one van?
I don't know how they did it, but they did it because it was just the two seats. The driver and the passenger, everybody else was on the floor. You know what I mean? So there were no seats. And then, the hitchhiker gets in, and then you got the boom guy and the sound guy. And it was crazy.
Did you have to drive the entire time?
Yeah. And I drove. I can't believe it.
So you're really driving during all those scenes?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was driving at the same. And just an aside, but a few years ago, I was just scrolling through. There's a bunch of chainsaw websites, and I'm scrolling, and all of a sudden I see a van, and there's a phone number on it, and a fan said that looks just like the van in the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, and I'm looking at it. I said, yeah, it does just look like it. And so there was a phone number. I called the number, and the guy that answered, his name was Scott Key, and I just as a joke, I said, are you any relation to Francis Scott Key? He says, as a matter of fact, I am. He was my great uncle. He wrote the Star Spangled Banner. So I said, by any chance, do you still have that van? He said, as a matter of fact, I do. It's been up on blocks for 40 years. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to get it. I'm the OG. I drove the van in the movie. And he was a sweetheart. We worked a deal. And I said, I don't have a way to get up there. He said, I'll bring it to you. So he trailered it, here to Austin, took it to my mechanic, Chris, who did the restoration. And then McCoy's Custom here in Austin did a beautiful job on the inside. And then we got a fan came up with the right the right exact paint for that year. And so it had been painted. We repainted it. It's got the blood stain on it. It's ready to go. And I'm actually taking it to I think San Antonio, New Orleans, and some other places around, that want the van to do photo.
Yeah, can it feel?
Yeah, I got the wheelchair. I got Franklin. I got an animatronic Leatherface. What more do I have to do?
I'm amazed that you've basically recreated the entire van from it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Another thing about the van scene that we always find so crazy is, when Edwin Neal, who plays the hitchhiker, lights that photo on fire in that small space. Did you have to do multiple takes of that, or if you remember?
I don't think so. I think it was done in one take. I mean, it's too
That's
crazy.
what I was thinking.
But I don't, my memory is foggy as far as how many takes, but I mean, Tobe was excellent he knew what he wanted, in terms of, he kept us apart, so I never saw Leatherface until I get killed.
That's what the next question was about your big death scene, because you're the third one killed after entering the Sawyer house. And first you find Pam still alive in a freezer after she'd been hung on a meat hook. And then you turn around, see Leatherface. He smashes you over the head with a sledgehammer. Can you tell us how you prepared for and filmed that sequence?
I had them blindfold me on the porch, waiting. And I said, give me about 15, 20 minutes. It was my tip to the Stanislavski method. I don't even know what that is, but I like saying that. And so they yelled, action. And so I go into the house, walk through it. Well, then they see the hook, the freezer opens. She comes out, and I'm turning, and then in comes Leatherface. I went screaming out of there. I tore out of there, and Tobe ran after me, said, "Alan, cut." He said, "That's one of the best screams I've ever heard, Alan. But you got to wait for him to come into the frame, so we can get this." I was still freaked. They had to do it maybe 3, 4, 5 times, and finally, 2 of the grips got me by the belt loop in the back and pulled me down just as the sledgehammer was coming down on me.
I've got to say, your scream is really great. It is true terror.
It's number 8 on all-time screams when the guy didn't know what the hell was happening.
Congratulations.
And the thing is that after 50 years, I'm still getting headaches from that shot.
That was one hard hit by Leatherface, let me tell you. Yeah.
One hard hit.
Did they apply any blood to you at all, or did you have to do any kind of blood or makeup or anything?
No, just boom. Yeah. And now, I mean, there's been a movement that quietly Jerry lives.
I mean, you could survive that, I guess.
Oh, you mean Jerry
did not
from
die.
Pam in the freezer.
Yeah, Pam in the freezer. So there's some other potential bylines here that might happen.
That is crazy. So you mentioned a little bit about this, but we wanted to ask about, director Tobe Hooper. He's become so known in the horror genre. And we read, obviously, like you said, filming conditions were kind of tough. And we read something where Gunnar Hansen got, pretty frustrated with Tobe during that big dinner scene. What was your experience like being directed by Tobe? Was he very laid back? Was he very, strict?
He was kind of, I would say, laid back. I mean, he didn't really give us a lot of direction. I think he helped me a little bit with maybe the astrology stuff, because I didn't know a Sagittarian for a vegetarian, so he helped me a little with, with that, where she says, and I say, read Sally, she's something. I don't know what the hell I was saying, but so a little bit, but not very much.
Yeah. And then also, the late Marilyn Burns, who played your girlfriend, Sally Hardesty, the final girl in the film. What was Marilyn like to work with? Any fun stories from working with her? Not
really. I mean, there was so much stress, putting that movie together. I think she had a lot of stress on her. So we really, we weren't very close until later on, years after, that I found what a lovely lady she was. She was just a sweetheart. And I got to really care about her. And she came to I had a bed and breakfast in Luling, Texas, and we did an outdoor showing of Chainsaw. And she came to it, and as did Terry. And we just had great times. And same with Franklin. I mean, we hated him. Paul Partain. We all clapped when he got killed. And it turned out he was the nicest guy. He was the sweetheart. But he just, once he got into that character, he felt that he couldn't he couldn't take them off.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We saw there was a 2000 documentary that you're in called Texas Chain Saw Massacre: The Shocking Truth, and Paul Partain said that he would actually stay in character as the very annoying Franklin even when cameras weren't rolling. Was he really like that, and what was that like to deal with?
Well, we didn't hang around them very much. I was actually friendly with Bill and with Terry and even Ed Neal. We became friendly, and when I had an entertainment company called the Three Ring Service, and Ed did some gigs for me. He did Slim Whitman, I Remember You type of guy on TV. He did some great stuff. He really is a tremendous actor.
And of course, there's Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface. Did you get along?
Well, like I say, I didn't really know him until after the movie. Then we became great friends, and he spent the summer with me here before he moved to Maine.
Oh my God! Did he bring a sledgehammer?
A chainsaw?
No. I wouldn't know. I checked to make sure he could bring one to the house. But he really was a gentle giant, very bright, and very funny. And I mean, I miss him all the time. Yeah. I really do.
We also heard, which is such a crazy story, that the film's original distributor, Bryanston Distribution Company, turned out to be a front from the mafia and stole a lot of money from the film. When did you first find out about all that?
Well, I started getting Variety, and I'm seeing chainsaws shooting up the charts with a bullet, like it beat out Enter the Dragon. I said, I think I hit the brass ring because we had a percentage because they couldn't pay us, the full amount. In fact, I got more money for not being in the other movies than I got for being in the movies. So but anyway, the movie's making a killing, and we get our first check, and I think I could get like a McDonald's or a Big Mac. I said, there's something wrong with this. And that's when we found out that they were ripping us off, for millions.
Wow.
So most of the big money was gone by the time that they were able to, get the rights back. And it's one of those stories you hear all the time,
Did it ever get resolved? I mean, or do you know how it was resolved?
It was resolved. They got the movie back, you know what I mean? But they were already, disbanded and whatnot, so there was nothing we could do. But since then, I mean, there's been rights and whatnot. And so we do get occasional royalties. I'm happy for everything. Who would have known that this movie that a lot of us didn't think would come out, or that, I tell the story that Toby asked me to come in and watch the dailies or some rushes, and he says, well, Alan, what do you think I could do to improve the movie? And I stupidly said, have the seats facing away from the screen.
Oh, wow.
He didn't like that.
Well, after the film was finished and everything was done, was there any kind of red carpet premiere or cast and crew screening, or when was the first time
there was a premiere here? There was a premiere here then it was called the Village Cinema. It's now the Alamo Drafthouse. And a few weeks ago, I was there with Tim League to honor the 50th anniversary of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. And we have a Texas Chain Saw Massacre pinball machine now. And it's a beautiful piece. And we had that out there. They showed the movie. We had some champagne. And the scoop that I'm going to tell you is that I just found out that here in Austin, they're going to proclaim Texas Chain Saw Massacre Day on October the 11th.
That's
here in
awesome.
Austin.
Wow, because that's the day it came out,
yeah,
right?
The day that the movie came out at the Village Cinema. So I'm really excited. A fan told me, he said, Alan, can I use your name and apply for this on your behalf? I said, by all means. And they said, yeah, we'd love to do it. So
wow. So, and that's in Austin, you said it'll be?
Austin, yeah, October the 11th.
I'm going to celebrate here.
Yes, we're going to let's make it a national holiday, Alan.
No school.
Like Juneteenth, right?
Yeah. Wow. We also heard there were a bunch of working titles that the film had before it was the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. Can you tell us if all of these are correct? Leatherface?
And Head Cheese.
Oh, Head Cheese was one of them. That was one on the list.
Yeah.
Saturn in Retrograde?
Yeah. No, I don't know about that. No.
Okay, and then Stalking Leatherface. I figure that's true.
I think those might be the same, or I might have said Stalking and it should have been just Leatherface. But I think those two are, and who came up with the title Texas was Warren Scarron, who was head of the film commission. He's no longer with us, but he came up with that title. And then when they edited the movie and they got John Larroquette, to do the scroll, and then the score, just the way they edited it was brilliant, and I think that's what made the difference.
It really did. Wait, so now I'm curious if you remember when you first got the script. Do you remember what it was called at that point?
I'd have to, I'd have to look.
Yeah, maybe Leatherface.
I don't think it was the Texas. It might have been Leatherface.
And
it might have been Leatherface.
Have you seen the sequels, the prequels, or the 2013 remake?
I've seen some of them. And some of them, I've liked. I like the one with Jessica Biel.
2003, yeah. He said,
yeah. I like the 3D movie just because I like 3D. And what's her name? Taddeo. I mean, she's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And then they use clips of us from the first movie, and that's where I said I got more movie for not being in the movie than I got being in the movie.
Well, have you caught? They did a direct sequel just 2 years ago on Netflix in 2022.
I saw that, and I met the director, and we were there for the premiere at the Alamo Draft House, and I met David Blugart, and Mark Burnham, actually, who played Leatherface, came down. We had a chainsaw kind of at Pecan Street Festival a couple of years ago, and we flew him down for that. And he was a very, very nice guy.
That is so cool. I loved that they continued the Sally Hardesty character. Obviously, it's unfortunate that
people got upset though with the way they treated her.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. But we hated that they brought her back just to have Leatherface kill her. It made no sense.
The way it was done, it was just a little bit dehumanizing.
Exactly. Yes, agreed. Yeah. So, just in your opinion, when do you think you first became aware of all the fandom behind the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and why do you think people just love this film so much?
Well, I think for me is when I went to my first reunion or HorrorCon in 2004, and I saw how people, responded. And then now it seems to be even getting bigger. Now, whenever we go, I mean, it's standing room only when, we do a Q&A, a panel discussion, and it's crazy. It's just, but in a great way, in a good way.
And why do you think people love it? Do you have any thoughts on why you think people love it so much?
Yeah, I think because it's so believable. I mean, it's Texas. It could happen here, and just we were unknowns, So there was the grittiness and just the way it builds up and once it starts going, it kind of grabs you and it doesn't let up. And I think there's that need to, I guess, to be scared and to know you're going to be all right, that you walk out. I mean, now, today, it's scarier just walking down the street, or just, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the world is in a crazy place now.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And have you been back to the filming locations?
Are they all still there?
No, the house it was originally in Round Rock, and now they moved it to Kingsland, and it's a destination. So it's a restaurant. People can spend the night there. The gas station in Bastrop is also a destination. And so people go there. They can get barbecue and they can spend the night at the gas station. And the gas station, that was one of my favorite scenes. Because when we pull in and Jim Seadow comes out and we say, "Can you fill it up?" And he says, "We got no gas." And he coming during one of those scenes, and then that troll-looking guy comes over to the van. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Of course.
Soapy water on the windshield. Inadvertently, I hit the windshield wiper, and it sprayed all that soapy water on Jim Seadow's face. He's trying to deliver his lines with soapy water. It didn't work. You know what I mean? Bill, Kirk, and myself, we just cracked up, take after take after take. And finally, Tobe got upset, and he ended up walking off the set. And Tobe finished shooting it, but we couldn't get it together after that.
Oh, hey, things happen. And also, you have to have a little fun as you're filming in horrible heat.
Exactly.
So we were looking through your career. It looks like you sort of retired from acting right after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What led to that decision?
That didn't, I just did. I was a social worker, and I had a full-time job, and I ended up actually being an extra in Willie Nelson's movie, The Honeysuckle Rose, and I think you see the back of my shirt in that movie. And then I think I was in a movie called The Tomato That Ate Austin. I don't know what happened to that. And then actually I shot a scene that originally was going to be 3 vignettes about a young couple, and it was being directed by Eagle Pinnell, who ended up taking one of the vignettes and expanding it. It became, I think, the whole shooting match. or The Last Night at the Alamo. And he was a brilliant director who unfortunately passed away way too early. So I just didn't do anything. And then just a few years ago, I met somebody by the name of Ray Spivey. And when he found out who I was or whatnot, he said, Alan, can I write a scene for you to be in, which turned out to be Storage Locker.
Yes.
Just as I thought I was gone, they pulled me back.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. It's like 49 years later, in 2023, you return to the big screen in not one but two horror films, Cannibal Comedian and Storage Locker. So what inspired the comeback, and what was your experience like being in front of the camera again?
It was a little anxiety because I'm a geezer now. If I like to see how I looked back then, so, but he said, it's all right. And then the Cannibal Comedian, I did the voiceover at the beginning of the movie. Ed Neal does the voiceover at the end. And the thing is, I did that voiceover while we had a freeze out. We had a storm, so there was no power. I was living in my kitchen. It was like rear window with James Stewart, where you're watching accidents happening on the corner. And so I did the voiceover, and they were happy with it. And it turned out it's also getting a lot of buzz, and it should be coming out.
A chainsaw buzz?
Chainsaw buzz. It's a good choice of words, buzz.
Yeah, good choice of words.
Yeah, and then we also noticed, and that's what we wanted to ask you about, the upcoming, you're starring in and executive producing, it's an upcoming horror comedy called The Weedhacker Massacre. What can you tell us about that, and does it have a release date yet?
I'm hoping that we'll see a rough cut in the next few months. The tagline is, once you stop laughing, you'll start screaming.
Ooh, I like it.
I love that. So what is this film about? Tell us everything.
It's about a group of young people, heading to a music festival, and then they find out that the guy that was the producer or whatnot absconded with the money, and they end up in, I think it's called Red Eye, Texas, which is the weed capital of Texas, and then mayhem ensues. So unfortunately there's a lot of killing, a lot of crazy stuff going on. And that was written by Ray Spivey, who directed me in Storage Locker.
You're also starring in the Weedhacker Massacre?
I would say I have a role. I play a sheriff, and I actually knock out somebody, so I'm a good guy in this.
And we saw that you attend conventions. What's the most common question people approach you and ask?
Well, what was it like? What was like getting killed? What the climate? Why did you do this movie?
I mean, you must be. I think you must. I know the answer to this question, but did you ever think back in 1974, as you're filming this Texas Chain Saw Massacre film, that 50 years later you'd be going to conventions and talking with podcasts and everything about it?
No, not at all. And in fact, I tell the story. When the movie premiered in 1974, my parents, they're in their 80s, and they're living in Florida, and they wanted to go see the movie, and they ended up seeing it in a porno theater.
Really?
And there was a double feature. The second feature was Debbie Does Dialysis.
Well,
and then during my scene, where my mother's screaming in her native language, which was no language. She spoke no language. And she just kept yelling, don't go into that house. And then they called me when they got home to make sure I was still alive.
Oh my God. I know that you were mentioning that Ed Neal and John Dugan, who played Grandpa, sometimes attend conventions. How about William Vale and Terry McMinn, who played Kirk and Pam? Do they ever attend?
Oh, yeah. Bill does a number, and Terry, when she can, she also does some. The biggest one that we did was Texas Frightmare. This is a month, I think it was in July. No, I mean May. So not that long ago, and it was packed. It was just unbelievable.
Was you and Bill and Terry?
Everybody was there. Ed Gwynn, the truck driver. Oh. Yeah, just about everybody that was still. In fact, Daniel Pearl, the director, Ted Nicolai, the sound guy, Wayne Bell, Kim was there. I mean, everybody. It was like a murderer's row. You know what I mean? It was like 12 of us.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that also so much, 50 years later, that everybody who's involved is embracing it. It sounds like, and like you said, I know Marilyn did conventions, I think, when she was still alive. How about, and Gunnar, did he do conventions?
Oh, yeah. Gunnar was the one that pioneered it. I mean, he did a bunch. And I'm hoping we still may be going to London, and there's talk about us going to Japan. So
wasn't the movie banned in London for 25 years? And then 25 years later, people could finally see it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's almost like when that happens, that just makes people want to see it even more.
You're right.
Do you enjoy seeing people's do you enjoy seeing it with an audience that when they ask who has seen this and they all raise their hand, they haven't? Do you enjoy that screening much more than diehard fans that have seen it a million times?
Yeah. I mean, almost everyone has either seen the movie or they know about the movie. It's just, and when I'm on a plane or whatnot, you start making small talk and they'll say, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to a convention. Well, what kind of convention? Well, it's a horror convention. You're going to, why are you going? I said, because of this. Then the big smile comes on their face and they say, can I take a picture with you for my kids? They'll get a big kick out of it. That's just pure joy. It's pure joy.
I love that. And like you were saying, I mean, horror fans like us, we love these films and we're so, dedicated and loyal to the types of things. It's like people who love you in a certain horror film will follow your entire career, and continue being loyal.
It is. It's just, it's wonderful. And I mean, I have my own website, chainsawjeffrey.com, so people can order. I got bobbleheads. I've got my own beef jerky that it says on the blade, "We were the meats," So, and so I got all kinds of fun stuff that people chainsaw lights that Gunnar signed back in the day, and so you can go to the website and order all kinds of stuff.
That's so great. So do you think now that you've recently come back into horror and you have an upcoming horror movie, do you think you'll continue doing horror movies?
We'll see. I mean, people are talking to me about my dream is to be the Colonel Sanders of horror.
Is that just
you are?
But that's a dream. That's a dream.
So, well, I mean, because I think I love that you're continuing to do it, and especially after taking such a break, but coming back into film. I mean, when you see your name on a horror movie, people right away are like, "Oh my God, it's the guy from the Texas Chain Saw Massacre."
Right, and when we did a convention some months ago, and they showed the movie, and then the next day I was told that I got a standing ovation when I got killed. I didn't know how to take that. If that was, then they meant it in a good way or glad I was gone, but I took it in a good way.
I of course. And I think especially in that movie, I mean, there's such memorable kills because there's only a few really.
It's a tough movie for me to watch because it holds up so nicely. It doesn't feel 50 years old to me. Like when I watch it, it looks brand new. It looks the screening we saw looked fantastic.
Yeah, and now I mean they've got 4G or for whatever they
4K.
Do. They're able to, but I think just the grittiness of it, from the original, it really is. I mean, it does. I've seen it maybe 50 times. I'm starting to like it myself.
But you know what? I really think you picked up on something when you were answering why you think people like it so much. I think sometimes when you have a very simple story, like people just being in the middle of, nowhere and
at the wrong time, at the wrong place, meeting the wrong people. I mean, it's crazy.
And someone hunting them down, like you're saying,
that will never not be scary.
That will never not be scary. You can have supernatural stuff, but that's not always as scary because if you don't really believe in it, it's not scary. But someone wearing a mask that has a chainsaw is terrifying.
Made out of human flesh.
And now, I mean, there's a video game. You know what I mean? And you can be the victim, you can be the killer, and that's doing real good. There's a board game. The Texas Chain Saw. I mean, what else? We
had read that Ed Neal actually voiced his character, the hitchhiker, in the 2023 video game, but none of the other characters are from the original movie. Do you know why they didn't use original characters? Or
well, the video game is a prequel. We don't even exist yet, so they may bring us back. We'll see.
You could say, "Quit goofing on me" in the video game.
Right. That would be my dream.
Well, we have one final question for you, Alan, and thank you so much for taking the time today. And this we ask to every single person that we interview. What is one thing, just one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on the Texas Chain Saw Massacre that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, convention Q&A, podcaster? It can be a tiny detail, just one thing that you've never told anybody else about your experience working on the movie.
That's hard because of so many things that, that I've done. I mean, and I've mentioned it, but to me, one of the nicest things or the most gratifying was meeting John Henry Falk on the way to the set. And he was a raconteur. He was blacklisted many years ago. And just being in his presence as a kid from the Bronx, I used to listen to a radio show called The Barry Gray Show. And he had John Henry Falk on it. And I was just mesmerized by this guy. So for me to truly say, to be in this fella's presence, meant the world to me. And I don't think I've ever told anybody that impact that, that it had on me.
No, thank you for sharing with us. We've listened to different interviews and things, and I've never heard you mention that. So thank you for sharing that with us. And we're so excited to, that there's going to be a Texas Chain Saw Massacre Day in Austin.
October 11th.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we're also being celebrated at the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, on August the 8th. There's going to be a big event, and they're flying us up there, all the cast members, for that. And that's going to be August 8th at the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art.
Wow. It has to just be the gift that keeps on giving, being in this movie.
That's what somebody, and then part of me is saying, I've taken my 15 minutes of fame and I've stretched it, like we're talking 50 years. Here I'm coming to the code of life and I'm having a great time.
But you know what? That is great. And I mean, the thing is that the movie deserves the praise that it gets. And, people want to celebrate it. And I say, why not? People celebrate all types of things, and especially with the anniversaries. And the fact that people are still celebrating it 50 years later just shows how important it is to people.
I mean, it scared me as a 10-year-old, and it scares me as a 47-year-old.
Oh, and then the other thing I've told people is that when the movie came out, my son was like 5, and I said, I just want to take him to see his dad in the coming attractions. And that's 50 years later, he's still in weekly therapy. So, I'm kidding.
I know. I was but I'm wondering, how old was he when he first saw the movie? Do you know?
I think he only saw it a few months ago.
Oh my God.
No. I think
I was going to say that can't be.
I mean, I've got grandkids who haven't seen the movie. And they're 18 and 20, and my son or whatnot won't let them. They've seen maybe parts of it, but I don't think they've seen the movie.
Is there any signs around your house? Like, do you have a beautiful Texas Chain Saw Massacre poster in your house?
I have one on my wall here, and it's signed, and it says, "Alan, I should have killed you first," and it's Gunnar Hansen.
Oh,
that is so cool. That is like a fan's dream to see something like that. Just because
a bunch of stuff, an original poster of eggshells and in my warehouse and stuff like that. Yeah. That
is great, especially to keep.
I don't know if you can see this. When I was at CreepyCon, this is my mini-me.
Yes,
and a bunch, of the characters from the movie and presented.
Just so listeners who can't see this, we're looking at, it's like a doll that looks like Jerry from the movie, wearing the shirt, the jeans. I can't see. Does it have the glasses too?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Yes, and the hair.
They got your hair pretty good.
So there's so many things now. I've got an action figure that a fan made for me. It's and the talent that people exhibit. A fellow made a shadow, but I mean, it's unbelievable. It's amazing the talent that this movie has, it's engendered. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, look, we so appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. We've really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much, Alan. We can't wait for Weedhacker Massacre. We can't wait to see you in hopefully more horror. And thank you so much for taking the time today.
Guys, you were great, and I had a ball with you.
Perfect. We did too. We'll take care, Alan. Have a great evening.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after-show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.